Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. I am Joan Insel, happily a member of this congregation, and I am presently serving as chair of the Social Activities Committee. This committee brings you lots of the fun social events throughout the year, and a lot of them are ongoing, such as First Fridays and circle dinners and dining around the world in Naples, as well as some one-time events, the theater group and jazz concerts and field trips, etc. So look forward to some of those things throughout the year, and you'll see it in your weekly news and newsletter. I would like very much to welcome any visitors and guests that might be here today. Do we have any that are here and would like to introduce themselves and say where they're from? And if so, a usher will come with a microphone so we can make sure to hear you. Maybe I'm not talking into the microphone either.
Good morning. My name's Bob. I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Bob, could you just make sure it's right close to your mouth, the microphone. Not everyone always gets to hear.
Again, my name's Bob. Live around the corner. Haven't been to a service in 20 years. Looking forward to being here today.
Ah.
Hi, my name is Rebecca DeFreitas. I'm Cheryl Lash's sister, and I am visiting from Paris, France via New Orleans.
Wow. There's one back there.
We're Rebecca and Travis McKellar. We recently moved to Naples about 2 months ago from New Hampshire, and I grew up in a UU congregation in Massachusetts, and I'm excited to have my family back involved.
And I guess, is that everyone? Well, welcome, a warm welcome. Please stay after the service. There is plenty of refreshments in the back, coffee and cold drinks and a lot of good things, and we'll get to visit a little more. I have one announcement, and that is just to remind everyone that Nan Evans' memorial service is next Saturday. It's at 2 o'clock here in the sanctuary. And immediately afterwards, there will be a reception at the Evans home, and everyone is invited. So please, we'll see you all then. And now we will take a few moments for sharing joys and sorrows together. In sharing our joys, we are able to celebrate together the good tidings in our lives. And in sharing our sorrows, we may offer our support and caring for one another. If you have something to share, please raise your hand or stand, and an usher will bring a microphone to you.
I'd like to share my joy about the sermon that John Lynch gave last Sunday on forgiveness. That really struck home with me. And I've been a member of this church for 12 years, and I think I know most all of you. But in that time, I have not always been the best person I could be. In fact, I've been stubborn. I have not listened. I've not respected authority in this church. And I want you to know that I seek your forgiveness for all of that, because I'm certainly not perfect. And I also want you to know that John Lynch is a ordained priest, and he has forgiven me. And I've given him my confession. But I love this church. I love the congregation. I won't give a speech, but that's really what I had to say. Also, I can be too huggy and too kissy, and if you don't like it, tell me, and I won't do it. Okay? But I love all of you. Thanks so much.
There is another over here. Yeah.
Jim has roped me into any number of things over the last few years. Okay. And I would like to thank Jim for his friendship and for all of the work he does for all of us. He's a true gentleman. My real joy, however, is that my sister-in-law, some of you may know her. She was a teacher at Seacrest Academy years ago. Ann Calder is her name. And she was discovered unconscious in her kitchen and was rushed to the hospital and was in a coma for a week, and things were looking very bleak. She is up and around, and she is, as far as we can detect, much recovered, and her recovery continues. So our family is truly joyous about that. Thank you.
Yes. May she continue to do well. Any other joys or sorrows at this time? Well, before the service begins, I do want to remind everyone to please turn off cell phones. And I've been asked to refrain from any clapping until the end of the service. We do have another pleasure in having Mr. William Dawson with us today. You will find his bio in the order of service, and he's had quite an illustrious career. We will now have the prelude.
Good morning. I'm Maureen Armour, happy to be your speaker this morning. I've been a member of this congregation since 1993. I do have to warn you that something in my throat is causing some voice issues. I just got back from a week in Seattle, and I think my throat has fog. But I promise you, I won't need a Heimlich or a 911 call, just your patience while I drink water or pop a cough drop. And now, let's read in unison our chalice lighting from your order of service. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to uphold the spirit of freedom. Today's opening words selection is in 3 brief parts, words from long ago that have not lost their impact. If anyone disfigures another, so it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Leviticus chapter 25. An eye for an eye only ends up making the whole world blind. Mahatma Gandhi. Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. Confucius. Our first hymn is number 131 in your hymnal, Love Will Guide Us. Number 131. Our responsive reading is in the back of the hymnal, number 521. May I be no one's enemy, and may I be the friend of that which is eternal and abides. May I never rejoice in the ill fortune of one who has wronged me. May I, to the extent of my power, give equal help to all who are in want. May I never fail a friend. May I protect myself. May I always keep tame that which rages inside me. May I know good people and follow in their footsteps. And now I invite you to lose yourself in listening to the music and let it lead you in the path of the Spirit. Thank you, Bill. That was lovely. If anyone has trouble hearing me, would you raise your hand and I'll try to do something about that. I don't know what. But. Let's join in reading our congregation's statement of mission. It's in the order of service. We are a welcoming congregation to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. And to support that mission, the offering. About the title of this talk, no, it's not about kinky stuff. I just have to think somebody must be enjoying punishment or there wouldn't be so much of it around. Seriously, wherever you look, there's a person or a group or a political entity or an ethnic group or a nation that's doing something so terrible, so reprehensible, that they must be punished for it one way or another. And it's been going on forever, or at least as far back as we can read. Very far back, Hammurabi authored the Code of Hammurabi, one of the first written laws in the world. He was the 6th king of Babylon from 1792 BCE to 1750 BCE, and that's when laws were written in stone. Here's a punishment from Hammurabi's code. If anyone steal cattle or sheep or an ass or a pig or a goat, the thief shall pay. If the thief has nothing with which to pay, he shall be put to death. Then there was Draco, legislator of Athens in ancient Greece, somewhere around the 7th century BCE, from whom we get draconian, meaning cruel and unusual, unforgiving rules or laws. For example, one of his laws decreed death to anyone who stole a cabbage. God knows God tried punishment. In Noah's day, people were so wicked that God drowned them all in a massive flood, except for good Noah and his family. And poor Moses, the messenger, he had to go up the mountain twice for God's commandments. And the second time, he brought down an addendum to the 4th commandment, the one about keeping the Sabbath. This time, Moses read to the people, "The 7th day you are to keep sacred. Whoever does any work on it must be put to death." When I was choosing the hymns for today, the Battle Hymn of the Republic came to mind. He hath loosed the mighty vengeance of his terrible swift sword. But it's not in our hymnal. Fast forward to the 21st century, and that ultimate punishment, death, is still with us, especially in this country. According to Amnesty International, the United States ranked 5th in the world for the highest number of executions last year. Listen to the 4 nations ahead of us: Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, China. 6th and 7th after us, Yemen and Sudan. Florida is 4th among 50 in the number of U.S. executions since 1976. But with all our practice at legislatively putting convicts to death, Florida still isn't very good at it. You might remember reading about Old Sparky, Florida's electric chair. It was considered a technological marvel when it triumphed over the noose, but was finally retired after it caused some convicts' hair to burst into flame before it finished electrocuting them. The electric chair was created in the 1880s. It was an outcome of a marketing battle between George Westinghouse and Thomas Edison, both of whom had a strong interest in finding more and more ways to sell electricity. In 2000, Florida switched from the electric chair to lethal injection, but that hasn't gone so well either, as you've probably noticed in the news. Still, there's always a little gallows humor to brighten things up, like the question, if you are on death row, do they sterilize the needle before your lethal injection? So punishment has always been with us, is too much with us, late and soon. But I'm condemned to wonder why. The obvious answer is, I know, to support a secure, just community by making people responsible for their bad deeds. So why do I still ask why? Because it doesn't work. People continue to steal, destroy, and kill as they have done over the millennia. And still, from pre-biblical times to the present, there are those who love justice or power or a high level of social organization who have persisted in rewriting punishments, producing billions of words in all major languages to little effect. So, somebody must be enjoying it. You probably can guess where I went with my puzzlement. Actually, it was Google Scholar. It's an amazingly advanced search engine. And there, after some digging, I found the answer to my question. Now, resources for contemporary research into human behavior are extremely rich and fruitful. Experimental games, for example. They're a huge player in psychological research. These are controlled, rigged scenarios that generate statistics showing how many people will exhibit certain specific behaviors given specific circumstances. The fundamental name of the games I was interested in is justice. When game participants experienced a serious violation of social norms or the breaking of trust within their group, they wanted the offender to be punished. Well, that's not surprising. We all have a stake in wanting the rules and values of our community to be respected and followed. The game changer here is technology, specifically neural imaging of brain functioning. We know some of the acronyms, MRI, PET scans, but their full names are impressive. Functional Magnetic Resonance Imaging, that's fMRI. Positron Emission Tomography, that's a PET scan. And I had to practice this one. Magnetoencephalography, that, thank goodness, is called MEG. What's really impressive is what these exams can do. They show us what parts of the brain are working when game participants want to punish a bad guy. And this is the because that answers the why I've been asking. Why is punishment always with us? But first I have to tell you that there are two different responses we human beings have when we're outraged by injustice. And they show up in different parts of the brain. The first one is called an intuitive reaction. It's immediate and strong. And it happens in the social emotional centers of the brain. The second response we have is slower, and it involves the abstract reasoning areas of the brain. And it doesn't always agree with the social emotional response. Want to guess which one wins? That's right, that first fast urge to punish is the one that scores. And if they're asked, the participants usually can't convincingly explain or justify the decision. So, why the leap to judge and punish? Because right there in the social emotional center that lights up on the fMRI and sends out the punish message, it's sending in a powerful neural jolt to the brain's reward center. When the game shows that trust and fairness are violated and the players go with that fast, intuitive decision to punish, their brain chemistry gives them a reward and they feel satisfied. We're hardwired to enjoy punishment. Giving it, that is. So there's the answer, and I don't like it. I believe there always were people who didn't enjoy it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome almost 2,000 years ago, was honored as a philosopher king, In his world-famous work called Meditations, he wrote, "To refrain from imitation is the best revenge." So much for an eye for an eye. More recently, Frank Sinatra said, "The best revenge is massive success." The allure of revenge remains hard to resist, particularly if we inflict just a little of it, and it causes just a tiny bit of discomfort, like when a loving grandmother gave her 3-year-old grandson a water gun for his birthday. He was ecstatic and headed straight for the sink. But his mother turned to her mother and said, "I'm surprised at you. Don't you remember how we used to drive you crazy with our water guns, squirting water all over the place?" The grandmom smiled and said, "I remember." But back to punishment, which is just a sweeter name for revenge. I know I'm not the only one here who does not enjoy the whole idea of inflicting punishment on human beings, taking away their freedom and possessions, and inducing physical pain up to and including death. The Unitarian Universalist Association officially opposes the death penalty. The second principle in the UUA covenant is to affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Our mission statement, which we read this morning, says we strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. But can that work? Can we somehow lower the voltage of that neural jolt of pleasure for punishment? Can we tame the desire for revenge? Well, yes, sort of. As usual, producing the positive is more complicated than promoting the negative. Some enlightened people are trying to improve human behavior before it leads to punishment. Antanas Mokas, a mathematician and philosopher who became mayor of Bogotá, Colombia in 1995, combined creativity and a great sense of humor to shape up his citizenry. Traffic was a lawless jungle in Bogotá, so Mayor Mokas hired mimes in costume, white paint, to dance around traffic offenders, holding up signs saying, "Incorrecto," and other messages. And the traffic was so bad that they could dance around the vehicles because it was stop and go. It worked remarkably well. People didn't like being shamed, in a creative way even, and they really enjoyed seeing it happen to somebody else. So law-abiding behavior was enforced both ways. Mokas recognized another reality of human behavior. People have a strong drive to conform to the group. Now that can work for and against a positive outcome. Imagine you're in a familiar group, maybe a bridge club or committee meeting or a dinner, where one of your group, named Madison in this case, is late. And somebody says, "Madison's late again. Every darn time we have to wait for Madison. What's so hard about being on time?" I guess nobody ever taught Madison how to do that. Now, the pleasure of group cohesion kicks in for you. You're there, on time, together, a member of the good guys group. You're rewarded. You feel good. But then there's a little twinge because you remember once when you were late and sensed a subtly accusatory reception. That was a mild form of social punishment. You had been deprived of a bit of your group cohesion, that comforting feeling of belonging. And that subtle punishment was applied to the absent latecomer too, because the next time Madison appeared, your group likely shared an unexpressed but no less real judgment. You've been hearing a lot about mindfulness, right? A core concept of mindfulness is being non-judgmental. I know a lot of you who have mastered being non-judgmental, and I am in awe. I've been working on it for years now, and it's still hard. Our culture is based on psychosocial judgment. On TV, there's Survivor, The Voice, Top Chef. We put thumbs up or thumbs down. Having the most expensive house, car, and clothing in town tells everyone to respect you as a person of value. Now, being non-judgmental does not mean you don't have any opinions. It means you don't appoint yourself the chief judge of your family, friends, and the rest of the world with full authority to assign blame and punishment. It means that you don't have to live with this us versus them social format, that you're liberated from the responsibility of setting the standards for everybody's behavior, and therefore being identified as the decider, or worse. I was arguing with the Supreme Court's decisions recently, just me and the New York Times, and I suddenly wondered, can a judge be non-judgmental? A non-judgmental judge would evaluate all relevant facts and precedents and strive to reach a balanced judgment. A judgmental judge would add to the mix his or her preformed views of the value and validity of all relevant facts and precedents, and reach a judgment that made him or her feel validated. Well, that explains a lot, I thought. I rested my case. They should teach non-judgmentalism in law school. Meanwhile, for the rest of us who are grumbling that punishment as we know it does not work, there's an encouraging amount of useful information and inspiration. Mayor Mocus of Bogota had more going for him than his sense of humor. People want to conform, to belong to the group, but they especially want to go along with people they like. And Colombians really liked Mayor Mocus. He launched a night for women, asked the city's men to stay home and care for the children, and 700,000 women went out on the first one. A water shortage inspired him to take a shower on TV. He turned off the water while he soaped and asked everyone out there to do the same. In 2 months, people were using 14% less water. Mocus said, "The distribution of knowledge is the key contemporary task. Knowledge empowers people. If people know the rules and are sensitized by art, humor, and creativity, they are much more likely to accept change." That's for the adults. A recent study examined how hearing stories with a moral influenced small children's honesty. This study showed that the story of George Washington and the cherry tree, where George is forgiven when he admits to lying, significantly increased the children's truth-telling. But stories that emphasized punishment, like Pinocchio and The Boy Who Cried Wolf, did not. Institutional punishment, as it's practiced in our nation today, has burned up uncountable millions of tax dollars and wrecked perhaps as many lives. Change is always hard and never certain, but while I pour the water or whatever from the half-full glass to the half-empty glass and back again, I'll hold on to these words from Rufus Jones. He was an American Quaker of more than 100 years ago, and he wrote, "I pin my hopes to quiet processes and small circles in which vital and transforming events take place." But there's still that hard wiring in my brain. So to feed it, I dreamed up a perfectly acceptable punishment. because it's just a fantasy. And this is it. Tomorrow, climate change deniers all receive a notification from their investment brokers that their funds have been permanently reinvested into resort development properties on small oceanic islands. Our closing hymn is in the Teal Hymnal, number 1008. Our closing words are attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others more than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning we are pardoned.